Oh, we're on. Oh, great. Because so we're continuing to talk about prenatals. Dr. Hilary Frederickson thinks it's very important that we take prenatals. And it's one of the things I really want people to hear this. It's one of the things that we think shift the fertility potential, and it sort of fixes all these underlying problems without really doing anything. So taking a really good prenatal, and this is a prenatal where you take multiple pills a day and you make sure everything's in there, which obviously we have one that we're promoting and saying, you should be on a prenatal like our prenatal, because everyone who writes in and is pregnant from us is on our prenatal. So we want to explore, like, why is this? And today we're going to talk about specific nutrients. And you and I also notice when we do blood work that we have this conversation all the time with our clients. People can't absorb fats very well. So they're omega deficient, they're omega 3s, they're anti inflammatory fat. They are vitamin D deficient, even if they think they're getting vitamin D in their diets, which I would argue with. They're vitamin A deficient, vitamin K, vitamin E. All those low levels of like fat soluble vitamins actually are really important. Like vitamin A and vitamin E are crucial for getting and staying pregnant, right? Huge, huge issues there. So it's interesting that, and I wanted to talk to you about this because this is really cool, because there was this California study on women, right? And so you'll like this because it's right in your hometown here. You can tell your patients this study today later. Um, so they did like pulling women out of clinics and just like women's health clinics, random clinics, like what are the levels of choline for these women? Um, are they getting enough in their diets? And they said 25% of the women in California, and this is really interesting because I was going through research and the woman presenting it was like, don't we all think that people in California are really healthy and eating really well and
Well,
living really well? This was like a funny, she's like, I think that's my bias. And I was like, well, I think that too. Because like people actually get outside. Some of
it's
them
a
are,
real state. There's
it's a
everybody.
huge state, right? It's a huge state. So we have to think, maybe people don't have access to incredible quality food and eggs and things that we want, for choline. But in general, a state like California, which is a very wealthy state, it's California is, if you're gonna like stack the states, it's a place where you would expect people to have good nutrition, honestly. They have good soil in California, they grow a lot of their own food, it's picked when ripe. We just think, okay, it's a good state that way. And 25% of the women were not getting sufficient choline to prevent birth defects. So
Wow.
that's not, they're not getting sufficient choline to do their thyroid function, or choline is really involved in estrogen and detoxing. So it's really involved in like hormone pathways, but choline is really important for making bile. So it's like, how you and I do these continuing ed things and we're like, oh yeah, that's right. That was like one of those moments for me where I'm like, bile helps people absorb all the fats. And all these clients that you and I have are deficient in fat soluble vitamins that are key to getting pregnant and staying pregnant. Maybe it's because they don't have enough bile. Maybe this choline is part of the picture. So making sure that there's a good amount of choline in your prenatal is a thing. Isn't that interesting? Birth
It,
defect, I mean, that's very low choline that you're going to potentially get a birth defect risk from being that low. So, I mean, imagine.
choline's one of the newer spoken about vi- nutrients for fertility and pregnancy. So, and it is missing in many prenatals. So that's something, and we would love for you to get literally eggs are the best source of them. So it's getting back to nature and making sure you're eating superfoods. It's really funny, like it's funny the generalizations about California, because California is a very big state with a lot of different socioeconomic influences. Like, right, there's a lot of different populations in California and a huge population. And I would say food and food scarcity is an issue in the United States in general, and getting quality nutrition through our food has become seemingly impossible in the United States. So even for the supposed upper class of women eating organic food or fruits and vegetables or prioritizing diet or whatever, their nutrient deficiencies are in question. But the majority of the people who are shopping at grocery stores, conventional grocery stores, maybe don't have access to even organic food or local farmers markets. We know food quality is really, really important, and that the nutrient density in foods just isn't there. And for them, it is like crucial that they're on a really high quality prenatal. Many of the prenatals that we see that are prescription prenatals, and Lord knows many women can't afford very expensive prenatals every month, so they go to their prescription prenatals. There are holes in many of the ones that we see, like they're using a folic acid, and we prefer to use a different form of folate in a prenatal. They don't have choline in the prenatal. So we want to just be making sure line by line your prenatals are tracking. And that, like Kara was saying, that the oils are part of any kind of prenatal package, your DHA, your EPA, your omega fats. And that's such a good call that you're actually able to absorb what you're eating.
Right. So, if you're listening and it sounds overwhelming to take 6 pills a day, which ours is, a B complex and a really nice omega and a totally separate probiotic, which I think is important. And so that adds up. It's in 2 packs. It's twice a day you take it with food. If that sounds overwhelming, some of the nutrients that really would be important to add in are those omegas, because those are often really deficient in women, and the choline, and it could be taken as a separate pill. So now then you're adding up, if you do the math, it still adds up. But it's very inadequate and disappointing that our culture doesn't do this for women, doesn't look at the research. You and I have talked a bunch of times about choline. We've been talking about this for years, right? We probably, if you go on Cultivate Fertility YouTube, we're talking about choline 4 years ago, right? Choline, we were worried about for people's thyroids and early miscarriages originally, and then when we were seeing the data of how many women in these clinics, there's studies, women coming out of clinics in Boston, they grabbed their blood level, and the choline's deficient in the majority of those women. So that's really important to kind of think like, okay, I live in the United States. What do the women's blood levels look like? What does their diet generally look like? And am I potentially deficient in these things? And I'm gonna say potentially you are, right? It's a real issue. I was on a Zoom call today with a naturopath from Australia, and her daughter's here, which you're gonna know exactly who I'm talking about, what I'm talking about. So her daughter goes to school in Madison, um,
Wow. Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Wow.
So she's talking to me about, I don't know how you and your patients do this in the United States, because I just recently went to the grocery store in the United States, and it was hard to find anything to buy. She was going through, I think, looking for porridge for her daughter, and they all have all this extra sugar and all these extra ingredients, and it's like there's all this extra stuff that she said we don't really have that in Australia. We don't have to do this like you guys do and really look at all the labels. So it was a really interesting discussion on how much do those food additives bother our GI tracts, things like gel and gum, which is in so many products now. All I was just buying alternative milks just now, and the last ingredient very often is this gelling gum. And it
Yeah.
wasn't in some of these brands like just even a few months ago. And you and I have a show, look back at it on GI and microbiome and the gums and ingredients to avoid. And gelling gum, even though it is from a natural source, it is destroying people's microbiomes. We have the research on that. So is it everyone? Probably not, but could it be you? Yes. So maybe avoid that ingredient. And so it's those kind of things that affect these nutrient levels too, because women come in, you and I see it all the time. They've been taking prenatal for years. Our clients are either super motivated young people who just know that they want to do everything they can, or they're the older women trying to get pregnant. Often we talk to them, or it's just, people our age. But these women are sometimes on the same nutrients for years and years and years and still coming up deficient. So what's going on? So it could be that our gut GI problems are making it so these nutrients aren't absorbed as well too. So it's a really big topic and disappointing because people are spending a lot of money on these supplements, and if properly, we're in trouble.
I think that we get to carry on the conversation because I am going to just say something is a little funky with our sound quality today. And this is so important. I don't want anybody to miss anything. So we will do a prenatal part 3. And we are really just emphatic and screaming from the rooftops that we want to make sure, like, if you're taking the energy to pay for all the things that you do for your fertility, checking when you're ovulating and fertility, all the fertility strips and this and that, we really need to make sure you're optimizing your nutrition. But we'll see you soon.
All right, we'll do that next time. Bye.
Bye.